Great. Thanks everyone for joining in. I'm Snehal, co-founder and CEO of Outdo. It's this time of the year when we all are in an introspection mode, where we analyze how did the year go, and then we plan for the upcoming quarter, right? So there are a lot of learnings from our customers, from our prospects whom we have talked to, plus a lot of interaction with folks like you, right? So we all are in that phase right now. So it's a good time to actually reflect on the learnings for this year, the best practices for this year, and how can we plan for a really good quarter 1 2026, right? So in this presentation, we'll be discussing how AI is impacting modern GTM enablement, right? And how GTM readiness, how sales readiness is still very much relevant. In fact, how do we adapt to the prevailing situation and use AI to create the maximum impact? So this is the game plan for the next 25 minutes or so. So we'll be first going through like how is the buyer evolving, right? How is the seller dynamics evolving over time, right? Then we will plan how we can execute, how we can use AI, how we can use the newer innovations which are happening in AI to basically improve our enablement game, right? And finally, we will have like a proper roadmap on how we can adopt and how we can actually help our team actually learn faster, ramp up faster, coach faster, how we can give them the right content, right guidance at the right time so that we accelerate our growth. Fantastic. So let's try to understand the buyers. How have the buyers evolved over the last year? So the buyer of 2025 and 2026 is very different, right? So every buyer now has access to tools, the generative AI tools, the agentic AI tools like ChatGPT and so on, and they can just research really good about the product they are looking for, the sort of service they are looking for, and they come well prepared for every demo, for every meeting, and so on, right? So this is a massive change. Like earlier, the demos had to be at a much introductory level, much discovery level, and so on, which has now changed a bit. Now the buyer, they're spending hours and hours. They're in fact spending like good 50 to 60% of their time doing research on what they want, how can they do it, whether they need to build, whether they need to buy, and about only 17% or so is actually spent on the meetings, right? The next big trend which has happened for the buyers is that earlier a lot of decision would be taken by one or two folks. That has now expanded to 6 to 10 folks, right? And in that mix, you now have the security teams coming in, right? In that mix, you have the AI heads coming in, right? So it's not just say a decision which is taken by VP of sales, but by four, five, six, seven, or more sort of decision maker right now. One, so this is a massive trend which has happened, and we were at Dreamforce a few months ago, and we had a chance to talk to many uh, VP of sales, head of sales from enterprises, from real estate firms, from insurance firms, from finance firms, and so on. Right? This is a sort of trend which has now happened when uh, a lot of decision making time has now increasing because of the complexity involved, right? Because of the more stakeholders which are now involved, right? So the sales cycle has essentially expanded from what was probably 6 months to 9 months, from 9 months to 12 months, right? So there has essentially been around expansion of your sales cycle by 40 to 50%, right? This is a massive sort of a change, right? Which is again brought in by the complications, which is brought in by various things which we'll talk about going into our presentation. Now, how does this impact organization? So sellers are busy. They are busier every week, every month, every quarter. They are pushing themselves. Yet, yet only 40% or so are actually hitting their quota. This number used to be 65 to 70% around 2 years ago, right? This number is changing. Things are getting complicated, and the number one obstacle, it's not the it's not the difficult buyers or the prevailing business scenario, but it is the readiness gap, right? Let's try to understand what the readiness gap is. Now, as I said, the buyers are very, very well prepared, right? When they are coming for a call, when they are coming for a meeting, they the buyers, around 80% of the buyers, feel that the sales reps are not that prepared, right? They haven't created a custom account, or they haven't understood what sort of problem they're facing, and so on, uh, so that they could probably see some sort of value right away, right? The teams A lot of teams still rely on very traditional form of coaching. The traditional form of classroom coaching or coaching by peers, where the learning happens probably once in a quarter or once in a year. That's worse, and essentially a lot of those learnings are forgotten, right? The managers are not able to spend good amount of time. They're not able to give the right feedback at the right time. So it just delays the entire ramp up, the entire coaching, and so on, right? And what does this result? It results in inconsistent messaging. It results in stalled deals. It results in missed opportunities, right? And this is the readiness gap, which we will be trying to solve, right? With AI, with sort of new ways to implement technology in the enablement space. Great. So over this year, what we have learned from AI essentially is that you can implement AI to deliver personalized coaching at scale. So imagine you have a personal coach, which is an AI, right? Who's always there for you, right? One big sort of change that we have learned, it's we have been able to automate a lot of busy work, right? Busy work like taking notes, pushing data into the CRM, right? A lot of things which would take up, good 20 to 30% time of a sales rep, right? Or listening to calls and then giving feedback. A lot of these things have been automated in 2025. Correct. Then comes the instant insights, which basically means that when you're going through the deal, when a sales rep is going through the deal, you get a proper feedback on, what actions, what are the next steps you could take to actually move the deal forward, right? And lastly, the ability to figure out, what are the best practices, how are your best sales reps actually closing the deal, and then try to replicate it across your team, right? This is the ability which has been given by AI, and what generally it has resulted in, the teams which have implemented this sort of AI in 2025 have been able to deliver, right, or have been able to improve their chances of reaching quota by 2.5%, 2.5x. So now let's just try to understand, what are the pillars which actually help to make an AI ready enablement, right? And this pillars will be the foundation for our enablement in 2026. So the first thing is around content, right? The content, as you know, it's just massive with how many tools we are using, the calls that are being recorded, the emails which are being sent, right? So there's a lot of context, a lot of content is there for basically enablement, in terms of your comparison guides, in terms of general enablement content to help you close the deal, and your presentations. But you can't actually share um, the content as it is, right? So the ability to actually crystallize, the ability to figure out which content to be shared, right, it's very important. The next big thing is how you should now plan for continuous coaching, how you should plan for continuous practice, instead of just having a classroom coaching, right? A very traditional form of sales coaching, correct? How do you actually deliver just in time coaching, which is very personalized to the GTM sales member, right? To the GTM team member. And lastly, how do you use data? Data that you're getting from your CRM, data you're getting from your LMS, data you're getting from your AI role play tools, data you're getting from your revenue intelligence tools, to basically figure out how can you deliver very pinpointed, precise coaching, right? How you can give guidance at the right moment so that the deal moves forward, right? So these are essentially the pillars of AI ready enablement in 2026. Now, let's just go a little bit deeper and try to understand how this works, right? So, one sort of debate in 2025 was whether this form of enablement will be completely automated. And I had this discussion with VP of sales at OpenAI, who was earlier CRO at Monday CRM, right? So there is some sort of a consensus which has now been built that the future is not just AI, but some form of a combination of human plus AI. And this is how we can structure it, right? So you can take your entire job and split it into various tasks, figure out which tasks can be automated, right, with AI. Mostly the busy work, the mundane, the repetitive tasks. And the human part is basically focusing on the strategic insights. It's basically adapting to the evolving situation, because if everyone just goes and builds, let's say, AI reps, it will be a very consistent sort of approach adopted by all the customers who will be, or all the companies reaching a particular customer, right? So it will not have any impact. So you need to always have that creative energy, that strategy, that focus to actually strategize the entire thing, and that's where the human part actually comes in. So over the last year, as we have built AI role play platforms, we have realized, the human element is actually customizing or configuring the right role play agents, right? How do you add those nuances? It would not take much time, but those finer sort of nuances, those finer form of judgments do actually create that impact, right? So the future is definitely going forward is a combination of human plus AI working together to make the enablement work, right? Let's just look at the modern enablement stack. Of course, there are various sort of sales stack has just expanded like anything, and there's some sort of consolidation which is happening, which you would have seen over the last 1 year. But very, very broadly in GTM enablement, right? These are the four major components, um, which would eventually happen as I see with some consolidation happening. The first is your content hub, right? This is where your entire content sort of resides. Think of it like a content data lake of sorts, where all the content is just coming and getting dumped. This is powered by a very powerful sort of MCP or a AI search, right? So just imagine, as soon as a deal comes, goes through a discovery stage, a demo stage, the right form of content is shared with the sales rep who is handling that particular deal, or with the agent who is managing that particular account, right? So that they can forward that information. The second part is around conversation intelligence and engagement, right? So we have so many tools that we're using to track emails, to record calls, to understand those calls, get those insights, right? It's basically helping the teams get better. It's helping the teams automate a lot of things around revenue operations, revenue intelligence. Correct. Then comes a very important part, which is around AI training and coaching, right? So this is one sort of change which we have seen in the last 3 quarters, right? So earlier, as I said, there was very traditional form of coaching, right? And this is across sectors, so it's not just tech, but also, insurance sector, commercial real estate, PNC insurance, and so on, right? So a lot of training of your GTM team members, of your agents, of your GTM reps would happen in a classroom where you could share some sort of material, some presentation, some videos, so they can go through. But that has changed completely, and we will be going deeper into how AI has basically helped you now to create really good digital twins of your customers, of your prospects, of your buyers, and so on, right? And finally, the MCP layer. So this is one layer which basically ties your entire revenue tech stack, right? So you can just query anything about, let's say, sales rep, about the buying process, about a deal in just one sort of sentence, and then press enter, and then you have your answers, your outcomes, and these MCPs could actually help you to power a lot of your AI services. So this has become like the foundation for your entire revenue stack, and definitely of your enablement tech stack. Now, let's go deeper into the various aspects. The first is, of course, the content and messaging, right? So, as I mentioned, right, we are now recording calls, there are emails, there's so much of content in CRM. The idea is to how to bring the data together, then basically understand the different nuances, and then send very pinpointed sort of data, guides, presentations, quotes, and so on, right? Which is personalized, which is extremely personalized, right? So this is one sort of a massive change or a massive trend which is happening in 2026, and this is something that you need to look at. In fact, there people have now built AI agents which are even tracking what sort of content is being sent by the GTM team member or by the agent, and then validate whether it is the right content or not, right? And then sometimes you make mistakes, you make simple copy paste errors, and so on, right? These AI agents would be basically even validating the data which is being sent, right? They will be validating the code or the demo presentation that you are sending, right? So it all is like completely orchestrated, right? And this is like a massive trend which is happening in the content space, which was pretty standard earlier, right? So earlier the content space would just be it will be a fancy version of Google Drive, where you could just put in your content and you can share, and then you can just observe, or you can see what has been the engagement been, right? Now it's way deeper. Like, the content is being cut into bits and pieces, it's been collated, it's been personalized, it's been validated, and a completely new form of content is getting generated on the fly, which is being sent, right? Now, coming to the AI driven training and onboarding. So earlier, as I said, right, a lot of coaching or training, initial onboarding would just happen in a classroom, or with a manager sitting in front. Over time, the managers have got busy. So in fact, a recent Gartner report mentioned that the managers in 2025 are handling 50% more tasks, right, than what they were doing previously. So this is where the digital twins actually come in. Just imagine if you could just replicate your buyer, your prospect, right, and create a digital twin, and your sellers, your GTM team members, your agents could just practice with them. They could practice different scenarios, they could practice different emotional states, they could practice different personas, right? They could practice different moods of the buyers, and so on, in just one click. This sort of regular practice is something that builds in the confidence, so that you're set from the get go, right? You are very confident before you actually start pitching or start talking to your first customer, first prospect, right? So the AI automatically analyzes your role plays. It has a scorecard, which is again a form of AI agent, right? Which is personalizing how you should be evaluated. It gives instant evaluation so that you can continuously work on it, right? So earlier, your ramp up times, which used to be around 12 weeks, around 16 weeks, have now reduced to 6 to 8 weeks because of this regular practice, because of this very pinpointed insights, because of ensuring that you have a course available to you, the sort of a call drill available to you, which a sales rep can just practice anytime, right? Further, this sort of wrap up is not just for, let's say, a person who has just joined, right? It's not just for the initial onboarding, but it has now evolved into some sort of continuous coaching so that you can maintain your baseline performance and you can constantly improve. So I'll just maybe highlight two, three good use cases that just came to my mind right now, right? So we have been working with few companies in insurance sector. Now these are regulatory environments, right? There are compliances to be maintained, and these compliances can be dynamic. So whenever certain scenarios change, compliances change, the regulations change, right? You can immediately create a dynamic AI role play agent, and you can let your teams practice. So within weeks, they are ready to actually sell around the new compliance, sell around the new technology, a new product, and so on. So there are so many interesting sort of use cases. And then if your team is ready, if your team is coached well, they are confident. It will help you improve your win rates. It will help you reduce your sales cycles. It will help you accelerate to your revenue goals faster, right? Coming on to the next part, right? So once you have actually been trained with your AI role plays, the next big thing comes is how do you get feedback on your actual calls, right? Of course, there have been revenue intelligence tools, like Gong, Clary, and so on. But you have to tie the entire loop together, right? This is again one thing that we are focused on over the last 2 weeks is after you practice your AI role plays, right? You can also either connect your revenue intelligence tool or just use Outdo to record your calls and get feedback on your actual calls. And that feedback basically gets looped into your role plays and your practice as well, right? So if it figures out that, okay, you're not good at negotiation or at discovery, you will be challenged by more role play agents or basically training agents which are focusing on that particular skill gap, right? So it's very targeted, very personalized, and it helps you to continuously improve. Now, this is another trend which is sort of happening a lot over the last quarter or so, and it's evolving, right? But there are like people are in two minds about this. So, but I see some companies adopting it and doing really well. Others are staying away from it for their reasons. But on-call sort of AI sales assistants, and this AI assistants can be in the form of, let's say, a technical engineer, an onboarding engineer, right? It could be in the form of a sales engineer, right? It could help you basically navigate few things around the technicalities, around the strategy. It could help you navigate a few things around whether particular point in your SOC 2 nuance is being handled properly or not, right? A particular guideline around security is being handled correctly or not, right? So again, when the positive of this particular AI trend is um, you or your sales team member can basically resolve the issue then and there itself, right? The negative aspect of this is that it probably uh, might make your prospect or your let's say buyer feel little less connected, right? Just imagine if you're talking to a rep and he or she is then looking at another screen and then trying to figure out, trying to get answer and so on. waiting. So it just breaks the flow. It might make you feel not connected in that moment, right? So some teams stay away from it, some adopt it, but again, it depends on your sector, the type of sales methodology you're following at your company, right? Now, moving to a very important part. So, all this data, right, which is coming in from different sources, right, whether it is CRM, whether it is your coaching intelligence, whether it is revenue intelligence, it has to be tied together, right? It has to give you very particular or very pinpointed insights, like reps who actually do AI role plays 5 times a week have considerably shown chances of getting more pipeline, right? So these are some sort of insights which are basically tied together, and this is where the MCP comes in, right? Where MCP has been able to connect to different sources, data sources, databases, and other MCPs as well, right? So, for example, your MCP could basically connect to your CRM's MCP, your revenue intelligence MCP, your AI role plays MCP, and then tie in that data together, right? So that's a major trend, and I think this will evolve a lot over the next 2 quarters or so. Great. Now this is one very important thing which basically a lot of buyers are basically dealing with, right? So this is a scenario of whether we should go ahead and just build it, right? Whether we should buy, right? And we have also encountered a lot of customers asking, just being very candid with us and telling that, we have a product team, we have a PM who's right now available. Can we can we make this tool right away? Or we are also trying to pilot something of our own, right? Do you mind that? So of course, I mean, to each their own. But over the last few months, right, we have tried to come up with a framework of basically trying to figure out how we can basically uh, figure out whether we should build or buy, right? So the first thing which has come up is basically around the strategic significance, right? This is basically if whatever you're going to build, it's not the core of your business, you should probably stay away from it, right? Frankly, because if you're building an AI product, right, it will have a data layer, it will have a security layer, it will have an agentic layer, and then it will have multiple apps on top of it, and finally it will all be tied by an MCP layer, and that's a very complicated stack to manage, which is very dynamic, right? You can see that every month or so, OpenAI comes with something. Basically, Microsoft comes with something, Amazon comes up with something, right? Claude comes up with something, Anthropic comes up with something, and you just need to evolve or change your layers of your software stack at that pace, and just becomes very complicated, right? So if it's not your core, you should probably not do it, right? That's a fair strategy, right? To take, right? The second thing is, whether do you have the core capability, right, in terms of allocating resources, right? So do you have the right amount of data engineers and data scientists ready, available to basically customize it, configure it, and evolve it, right? So just one time building is doesn't suffice anyone's job, right? I mean, eventually things will evolve. Then how quickly do you want to implement it, right? Just buying can help you basically go from a pilot to a full implementation in a quarter, right, in enterprises. So you can imagine, right, if you're actually trying to build it, if you're trying to configure it, if you're trying to customize it, it is easily going to take at least 2 to 3 quarters. That's a delay of good 6 to 9 months, and by that time the tech would change, that layers would change, and so on, right? Do you want to take that risk, right? Then there are, of course, issues around the legality and economics. You have to manage the data, you have to manage the cloud, you have to manage various vendors, right? There you have to manage the security of your data, right? Do you want to take that data risk or the ROI risk, right? then this is in addition to what you're actually doing as your core business, right? So you see companies are now moving really fast, right? So if you stay on the core of your business, if you want to grow your business 3x 5x, which a lot of companies are now doing, right? Because of AI, it's better to actually stay away from actually building the AI software. Instead, just focus on your core business. But if in any case this AI software is going to help or is going to augment your core business in some ways, then of course it makes sense to invest that much money, resources, invest that sort of competency in actually building the AI software. So this sort of a build versus buy dilemma will always be there. It's generally be there for ages, even when companies were transitioning from on-premise to cloud, right? Everyone had this idea, can we just use open source and just build that SaaS software? But it turns out that, building one time is fine, but maintaining it, going deeper into it, and so on, basically takes time. It takes resources, and it could actually diffuse your focus from your core business, right? Now, I just want to highlight one of the customers, which has been working with us over the last few months. So, Allied Health Agency, they're basically a health insurance company, and they have been struggling with, ramping up their teams with our AI role plays and with our AI coaching. They have been able to reduce their ramp up time by 33% in just 2 to 3 months, right? And this is evolving over time, whereas the software collects more data, the software gives more configuration, more sort of personalization for your scorecards, for your role play agents, and so on. So companies have seen quicker ramp up. They have seen value way faster by buying the software, adopting the software, so as to solve their problems quicker. So here is a really good takeaway for all sales enablement leaders, for the coming month, for the coming quarter, and for the coming year, right? So this is how you can plan. The first thing is to basically do an audit of your process, and December is a good time to do that. Just figure out, what are those gaps in your process, whether it's a content gap, right? Whether it's a ramp up gap, whether it is a gap which is slowing your win rates, whether it's coaching, right? Or whether it is basically an MCP or analyzing the data from different sources together, right? So once you have identified these gaps, try to figure out what are those tasks which can be handled by human, which are the tasks which can be given to AI, and then just pick one or two ideas for the next month, right? When you try out different products, you maybe try out, let's say, a solution around AI role plays to ramp up your teams faster, right? So pick up like one or two such ideas and then do a pilot for entire quarter, right? So just you might not see the value or the ROI in the first month itself. So you need to give it some time. So that's why, just try out those one or two things for a quarter, which is a good time to see how things are evolving. We've been working with some enterprise companies like Tensor CMC, Globe Life, Provide Sure, these regulated sort of insurance companies. They started with a small pilot, and then they basically evolved into implementing it for their entire team. So you do a phased rollout from 1 month or to let's say 1 quarter, right? And then you evaluate whether you have configured the role play agents correctly or not, whether you have set the process correctly or not. At the same time, one thing that we have learned from the adoption bit is you need to position this AI tools as a tool for enablement and not for evaluation, right? So if the teams perceive it as something like they are being evaluated on or they are being judged on constantly, they will probably not adopt it, right? And lastly, over the next 1 year or so, the idea is to basically uh, see how you can ensure or set the right processes in place. how you can actually set the entire enablement plan in space, right? How you can actually ensure that you set the right culture, whether you're creating a habit of reinforcement learning, you're trying to connect different AI tools together, you're trying to figure out what's the ROI, what's the gains, and so on, right? So finally, this is the vision, right? A very simple process, right, which you can actually use to figure out the right set of tools, the right set of AI processes. The first thing is, for every a GTM team member, right? AI is going to be part of it. So figure out, what are those different tasks which they are doing, what can be automated. Then there are certain things which humans can do the best, whether it's creativity, whether it's building relationships, whether it's strategic thinking, that should always stay with the humans. The rest of the part, they can be automated, right? And basically use AI tools to ramp up your team, to basically implement AI driven, data driven sort of a coaching, right? This will help you make your enablement org, right, as a strategic powerhouse. It's not just a source where when it's seen more as a training center of sorts, right? It's a strategic powerhouse where you're trying to figure out the nuances into what is helping you close deals, give the right guidance at the right time, automate processes, and ramp up your teams really, really fast, right? So finally, yeah. So that's for this presentation. We'll just wait for some questions. I see some questions popping up, so I'm just trying to open the question window, and then just we'll take it from there. Yeah, we'll just wait for a moment for a few audience questions to come in. Okay, so I'll just take up three or four questions. The first question, of course, is AI going to replace sales reps or enablement professionals? So yeah, I mean, we discussed this in one of the slides before. So certain parts of work will be automated by AI, right? Let the strategic thinking, let the creative thinking, let the the dynamic thinking remain with the humans, and that's where the enablement team needs to come in. They need to. So earlier, the enablement team were essentially creating content in LMS. Now they will be configuring the AI role play agents. Now they'll be configuring the AI scorecard agents, right? So this is how every job is basically evolving from your traditional aspects to the in the AI world, right? Uh, what should I? So this is the next question. What should I prioritize if my team has limited budget or bandwidth for AI adoption? Right. So again, a really good question. So the first idea, as I mentioned, right. In fact, in the first month in January, right, do a proper audit and try to figure out whether what are the gaps that you have, right? So different teams, different companies might have different gaps. Some teams might have gaps around creating enablement content. Some teams might have gaps around training and continuous coaching, right? So you need to, if your gap is around training, ramping up, and coaching, then probably adopting a solution like AI role plays, like what Outdo offers, is the right way to go. If your gap is more around content, then you can use similar solutions, right? Maybe a seismic or hotspot, high spot, where they can help you generate that dynamic content, right? Uh, then we'll go to the next question. What if my reps are hesitant to use AI tools? How can I drive it? So yeah, I think we also observed this sort of query coming in from few of the enablement leaders, few decision makers, right? How do we ensure that the adoption is really good? So adoption would take some time. When one thing is, as the tech evolves, as the UI evolves, and as AI gets friendlier and friendlier, right? There's one important thing that we all need to do is to maintain a very sort of a healthy learning environment. So it's a You need to frame it as an environment of, enablement and not evaluation, right? So you should just remove that fear that you are being judged for every call that you do or every role play that you practice. You need to basically uh, create a very healthy environment, and once they actually sense that, right, they will basically try out the AI tools. You will make mistakes, everyone does, right? But eventually you learn, and then you just becomes, another thing that you have to do, another chore that you have to do regularly, right? Okay, I'll just maybe take one more question. Like, is AI useful for experienced sellers too, or just onboarding new reps? So, uh, I think the real-time coaching, the call debriefs, the scenario-based simulations, uh, these are very important things, not just for, the early joinees, but also, the experienced folks out there, right? You can refine your skills, you can stay sharp, you can ensure that you meet your targets, you reach your quotas, even when, the new competitors comes in, or a competitor adopts a different strategy, right? Or a market trend shifts, or there's new content, new product feature, right? So you basically ensure that even your top GTM team members, they don't have any blind spots, but basically it helps you to just get better. So, I mean, I'll just give a very straightforward answer. Even the best sports person will have a coach, because everyone has gaps. Nobody is perfect in everything, right? So, of course, AI is very, very much useful for experienced sellers as well. Yeah. Fantastic. So I think that's all we have for today's webinar. Thank you for joining in, and I wish you very, very happy holidays and a really good time with your family and friends. Sure. Thank you.